Greetings. Let's go back to the West Coast Sauna Summit. We record this episode as part of the sauna building seminar at the West Coast Sauna Summit, January 2025 at the Loon Lake Resort outside of Vancouver, BC, Canada. I moderate a panel discussion with, on my left, Andrew from Saunabuilder, and on my right, Josh from Theraluxe. These two are Western Canadian sauna builders who left their Finnish nailers behind in order to come to the West Coast Sauna Summit this past month. It was just outside of Vancouver, BC, Canada. And I really enjoyed our time together. You'll hear my kind of sauna building thinking and talking, from bench heights to wall cladding, to wood stoves to electric, mobile to fixed backyard. We cover a lot of topics in an open and collaborative spirit. Just what I love. Minimal gatekeeping, more open mind and inclusion. Great people, and I'm happy to share it with you. There are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. This is a quote from Thomas Sowell from his book, A Conflict of Visions, Ideological Origins of Political Struggles. There were no political struggles in the conference room, on the sauna benches, in the cold lake. It was just all collaborative and a great time. I hope you get something out of this show as much as I did and enjoyed my time with Andrew and Josh. And welcome to Sauna Talk. Greetings. This show is brought to you by Saunabuilder, Start to Finish. This is a book that I wrote in 2013, now in its fourth edition. It's for the DIY sauna builder, the casual sauna builder. You may be an accountant, you may be a lawyer, you may be a father, you may be a mother. This is a slow and steady approach to sauna building, from start to finish. We go through Finnish rules, British diplomacy, American adaptability, and bring you a full spectrum guide to building your own sauna. Indoor electric, outdoor wood-fired. We cover it all. Just keep in mind the Holy Trinity: heat, steam, ventilation. We get those three covered, you're on your way to building a great sauna. To order the book, go to saunatimes.com. Up at the top, click ebook, and get your copy today. It's sauna time.
Humble honor to have Glenn from Sauna Times here. This guy has been breathing, living, and talking about sauna for 20, 30 plus years, and really the pioneers, traveled all over the world, and is very passionate about the industry and what we're doing. So I'm just very grateful to have wisdom and so much knowledge in the room. So yeah, let's give a hand for Glenn for making the trip.
Thanks, Val. Thanks for having me here at this event, and all of us. I mean, this is the beginning of some great connections, and I think that if nothing more comes out of this event, it's the spirit of connections. You know, one good friend, one good business connection, and passing the torch. So I'm the moderator for this. I'm also holding a microphone in my hand. This is a Sauna Talk podcast episode, which I started in 2016. This will be maybe the 105th episode or something like that. So a quick plug on that one for you guys. And so that's my introduction. Glenn, Sauna Times. Vale summarized it very, better than I could speak about myself. I'm going to pass the mic to my left, and Andrew, if you could introduce yourself and tell us about your business and your journey and how you discovered sauna, whether it was a light bulb or a percolating fire in your own backyard. What brought you to the space, and tell us about your business.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. So how I got introduced to saunas, my parents are both from Northwestern Ontario, and they were teachers. So they raised us in Calgary, but we had a summer, we call them camps in that area. So we had a summer camp that's only accessible by boat, no power, running water. And saunas in that area of northwestern Ontario are pretty prevalent. Thunder Bay is a huge Finnish, has a huge Finnish population. So my dad built a sauna on the dock when we were 3 or 4, and the sauna runs 2 months in the summer, almost every day. And all of our relatives and friends that live on the lake, most of them have saunas on there right near the water. So sauna for me was always something that I associated with summertime and the lake life and being around family and friends. And when we would leave our cabin and go back to Calgary for 10 months, it was always a tough time. And when I became an adult, I always wanted to bring a piece of that lake life back to the city. And I knew for myself that I wanted to build a sauna and an imitation lake, what we now call cold plunge, in my own backyard. And then I had a construction business as well, and it kind of all came together. Nobody was really building saunas then. That was about 8 years ago. So that's what got me into sauna building, was trying to recreate that lake atmosphere all year round, and especially in a city setting where you don't have the forest and the lake.
And then bringing us up to current, tell us about your business, Saunabuilder. How many employees? How many saunas you build? If you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, for sure. So we have 3 full-time carpenters, myself, and an office manager, and we used to just build residential saunas. That's the bulk of our revenue. In the last 2 years, I'd say commercial saunas account for at least 50% of what we do. And so in terms of how many saunas we build, it depends on the project. For indoor residential, we'll do 2 saunas a week. If it's an outdoor residential sauna, usually we build those in about a week and a half. And then commercial saunas, those are very time-consuming projects. And I think this year we have some ambitious ones. I think we're doing 5 commercial projects. So it's a blend of the home sauna and the business sauna.
Fantastic. Thank you. Do you sleep?
Yeah, it's a work in progress, trying to balance that for sure.
How about you, Josh? How many hours of sleep do you get? Are you busy like crazy?
I'm busy like crazy, but I do get a good 7 to 8 on average.
That's great. Tell us about your journey to sauna and your business as it sits today.
So I'm a bit of a late bloomer in the space. I'm originally from Northern Alberta. I have an extensive history in the construction industry, cabinetry, interior, exterior finishing on homes, timber framing, that kind of thing. And I, like a lot of people up in Northern Alberta, in the winter it gets a little dark and it gets a little boring. And hot tubbing is very popular. And I started to get into, the rabbit hole around saunas as, alternative to getting hot in the winter. And I started to just, as a hobby, I built a little personal sauna for myself in the woods, and that really opened my eyes to that experience. And then I made the drastic decision to move to the Lower Mainland, uproot my life, and moved down. Drove 18 hours and moved down, and right in the middle of COVID. So I knew I didn't want to start from scratch somewhere, and I've always, dreamed about starting my own business. So I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and sleepless nights into getting it off the ground, bootstrapping it myself, and started the business in early 2022, so right around 3 years.
Cool. Good. How many employees?
I currently have 3 guys in the shop, and then myself and 2 people on my marketing team.
Fantastic. Thanks. So this is going to be interactive. What I thought I'd do is kind of warm the room a little bit with a few softball questions that we discussed, like the 3 of us. And I'll do this little podcast style and switch it back and forth. But I want to allow enough time to make this like really fluid with us So be ready to raise your hands in a little bit. But there's a line that there are no solutions, only trade-offs. And I think as I lay out a few questions, be thinking about that. Like, one thing helps, but it's a trade-off with another thing. And in no particular order, let's talk about that as it relates to the wood species. Thermal wood is thermally treated wood. Are you using it? What do you think about it? And how, this is the land of Western red cedar. I mean, I've built, I don't know, maybe a dozen saunas, 100% have been Western red cedar. So I'm supporting your economy locally here out in Minnesota where I'm from. I'm a huge fan of Western red. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the solution of the cladding for our hot rooms. Want to speak to that, Andrew?
Why don't you let Jaw speak it? Or I can say that we have mostly built just with Western red cedar, clear and knotty cedar. We haven't ventured into thermally modified wood. We have used other species on select projects, but a lot of it comes from just a practicality standpoint of it takes a long time to develop relationships with suppliers that can supply what you need. And in Alberta, it's a very protected industry. So there's one or two main distributors that buy directly from the mills and then sell to the retail stores, and nobody wants to sidestep that arrangement. The first question when, like, I've done mill tours in Vancouver, they always ask, where are you buying your product from? And as soon as they know where you're located, they know that you're buying through this distributor network, and they protect that, because if the distributor finds out that they sell directly to us, then they cut that off. But there's a lot of mills, and there's a couple main ones that these main distributors order from. So there are avenues to purchase direct, but once you find those, you kind of work with that. So we want to work with different species, but it's just, okay, who can we find to work directly with, and who can supply the inventory that we need on a regular basis?
Josh?
Yeah, when I first started building saunas in the Lower Mainland, it was primarily clear cedar. And this was at the height of the building rush, when you couldn't get anything quickly. This is when, it took half a year to a year to get a lot of, products and equipment. And I got the recurring theme that, clear cedar specifically is getting harder to source, and, old growth is on its way out. It's not really sustainable, in my opinion, long term, based on what I'm seeing. So then I started exploring other options, and then I stumbled over thermally modified woods. And we then added primarily thermal aspen, thermal alder, and thermally modified spruce, Norway spruce, to our offering. And since that pivot, we've done, I would say, 90% of what we do is thermally modified woods.
Do you find it easier to work with as a species, as a more consistent in terms of there's no shrinkage involved? I've been told that's one of the advantages. Do you see it in your work?
Much more stable, yes. I find it's much more stable than something like even a kiln dried cedar.
How about cost per foot?
So we don't buy a lot of bulk because we have so many different options. And we're low volume, so we don't buy a lot of bulk. And if I buy per piece, per linear foot, through my suppliers, clear cedar is currently my most expensive option.
Any Finns in the room? Yeah. Okay, so why? This is a loaded question, but why aren't they building sauna? I know the answer, but you know where I'm going with the question is traditionally saunas were not built with cedar. And the obvious reason is?
We don't have it.
There you go. Yeah, and if cedar were available in Finland, do you think it would be a preferred choice?
Yes, probably. No, it's just been the high-end choice. You can get it, but it's about 5 times more expensive.
Exactly, and my friends in Britain, when they do high-end saunas, mainly indoor and stuff, cedar is the choice for the premium. So it's just really fun to be here in the shadows of this natural, beautiful species relative to the thermal treated. Go ahead. Any other final comment on species?
I would just say, like, we were talking about the finish on the wood. So we, the mill that we work with for our cedar, they have arguably some of the best equipment for milling, so that when we receive it, it's as close to perfect, that finished surface, as you can get.
Yeah.
But we still have to then surface sand it. And we used to do it by hand, and now we use a different technique to do that. But it's if you saw what happens from when the tree's standing in the forest till it's in the sauna, the amount of hands that touch it and the finish, like it's such a huge process. So, and that's why it's hard to pivot. Once you develop that process of getting your wood and finishing it and get that down, it's hard to then bring in a new product. But I think the thermally modified wood, the finish on it, like you were saying, you guys can install it right from the package, which with cedar, if you want it to be perfect, it needs to be finished sanded before you install it. Especially,
And even in many cases, climatized. Like, do you bring it in and get it acclimated to temp, or is it usually pretty stable?
It should be stable. Like, it should be kiln dried at like minimum 13%. But over time, all wood in the sauna will have that shrinkage factor. Like a 1x4 will shrink, and there'll be gaps that are usually a 1/16 of an inch. That's pretty common, but I don't know if you find that with.
Yeah, we find that much more with cedar products. So the way we do our paneling is we don't have any moldings or corner trims. We, make sure you have clean cuts and tight gaps or no gaps. And we find if we go back a couple years later, the products using clear cedar will have potentially more shrinkage than something like a thermal aspen. Also, there's an aspect there too. If you use, really wet SPF versus, a Doug fir for framing, the actual structure will shrink more than the paneling that's hanging on that
Good point.
structure.
Yeah, cool. We're talking about, I'm going to go back over to you, Andrew, because you have so many customers. What is your breakdown indoor versus outdoor? And then staying on that, a second question would be wood-fired versus electric.
Yeah, it's a great question. When someone comes to us and they're looking for, let's say, a home sauna, I always like to think our job is to first inform them of the different options, and based on our experience, the pros and cons of each, and really be thoughtful to understanding what they're going for and presenting them the different options, and then they make the decision. So I'd say indoor saunas are for sure our most profitable. So like an indoor home sauna, we can get in and out quickly. So they're our most profitable sauna. So that is one part of the business. But the outdoor sauna, when you're outdoor in nature, like that to me is always like the holy grail of the experience. But it costs more.
As a percent?
I would say indoor probably accounts for 60 to 70% versus outdoor, and I think a lot of that has to do with cost and as well as convenience. People want to be able to just go in their basement or ensuite, press a button and get in. And commercial, I would say it's about half and half, whether we're doing indoor saunas or outdoor.
Got it. And outdoor, what percent are wood-fired versus electric?
I'd say over 50%. Like we really try to paint the picture that with a wood-burning stove and an outdoor sauna, the environment when you're in the sauna it's really hard to beat. The electric stove, obviously you have the convenience of pressing a button, not having to start a fire. But again, it comes down to trying to paint a picture of what the two differences are, and essentially they make the decision. I will add one thing with electric stoves. As we get into this electrification of everything, we're running into major issues with incoming power to homes. So most homes have 100 amp services coming in, and you might have a lot of space on your panel, which most people think, oh, if we have space on the panel, we can put whatever we want in there, but that's not the case. It's what the draws are on the panel.
So what's happening is when the dryer's going and the sauna's going, things are shorting?
Yeah, so if you have a 100 amp panel and you have a hot tub that's a 50 amp breaker and air conditioning that's a 40 amp breaker and maybe a electric range, then boom, you're at your 100 amps.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't truly draw 100 amps, but every time you install electric stove, you should do a load calculation. So when you install the sauna, they don't turn on the sauna and it shuts the main breaker off. And in that case, if the load calculation comes in and they say you don't have enough power, then you need to upgrade your service. And that comes from typically your meter outside your house to your panel, then replacing the whole panel. So you can get into like a 10 grand bill with that. And in that case, we have some customers pivot to wood burning.
Oh, that's cool. So they get a better experience by default.
Yeah.
I had to put that plug in there.
Yeah.
Josh, percentages for your business, if you could. The first one, indoor versus outdoor.
I would say right around 50-50.
Cool.
If I include commercial and in the indoor part of that. I would say about 80% of the indoor would be residential, and we do a lot of home gyms. Home gyms are very popular here, and they're getting much more popular. Home gyms, and then like a lot of these big homes will have like wellness or spa spaces in their basements, and the outdoor aspect too is back to what Andrew was saying. I think the experience is much nicer. We have a lot of focus on glazing, so it does feel like you're kind of sitting in your backyard, in your garden,
Right on.
kind of thing.
Right on. Wood fired? Electric?
100% electric.
Gotcha.
We to be honest with you, we haven't done any wood fired. We offered it for a while, and we realized very quickly it wasn't feasible for our clientele. So our clientele is primarily in municipalities that can't have wood burning. So yeah, we've pretty much just kind of closed that door.
Yeah.
I would definitely entertain it for a custom build, but
Right on. Okay, so this is a little bit more, I'm going to open the floor for questions here in a minute, and then maybe I'll ask a couple more beach ball questions that the guys and I talked about. But I wanted to talk about like this whole Instagram stuff, for lack of better words. Like, how do we balance, we, meaning this community, the function of the spiritual aspect of sauna with it being more introspective space, a more church-like experience versus this movement toward things like big glass, big wow, photo opportunity. Any comment to that? Like, how do you guys as builders see this trend, and maybe not even try to steer ships, but how do you put consciousness against that, what could be a conflict? Do you see it at all?
Yeah, I think it comes down to like when we put a huge emphasis, we call it the pre-construction phase, which like all the planning that goes into a project before we ever start. And it starts with like informing them and giving them the options and what's more important to you, like the aesthetic of the building or the performance. And often when we're designing and estimating projects, we'll do multiple different designs for them. So we'll do a full glass wall with sexy lighting, and then we'll do something that's more trimmed down. And it's that balance between, okay, what's their budget? What do these different designs cost? And what's the most important thing for them?
And do you see one being more more popular or more strong with your clients? Are they getting it?
Yeah, I think like most people want something that looks gorgeous. Like I would say the driver is mostly the visual of how does it look. I would say most people aren't too concerned with the performance of the room, but I would say most of our clients are also not like seasoned sauna individuals where they grew up with it or they're from Europe. Most of our clients a lot of them have never saunaed before,
Right on.
so they don't get that performance side.
Josh, over to you. Performance versus aesthetic. Do you see this in your day-to-day with your clients?
yeah, very much similar to what Andrew was saying. We work with a lot of interior designers that make the decision for the client. So function is very often overlooked, and that's it's up to us to make sure we don't forget about function and check their boxes as far as the way the aesthetics, the way things look. And that comes down to, education and packaging, function in a way that they understand, even if, we're not talking directly to the end user. And with a lot of the Instagram type look thing, people have, Pinterest boards and all these little ideas they have. And it's always about how it looks, not about how it functions. The amount of drawings I get from architects with a single tier bench, just one bench. And I have to say, sorry, but this is not going to work. Like, I'm not going to build you a sauna that doesn't function the way a sauna should. Well, and people are very open to conversation and to understanding why things are a specific way, why we're trying to achieve a certain function.
Well, a spin-off from function is also maintenance. We touched upon this a little bit in our walk. We had a 5-minute walk before we sat down with you guys. And especially on the commercial side, I'll just throw in that big glass may look great in a photo, but you better get a Costco supply of Windex for that. So maintenance also ties into function, does it not? Any comment on that real quick? And I'd love to get some dialogue going. So let maintenance be, or do you have something to say on that?
Oh, well, and it probably can be a part of a bigger discussion, but what we found with commercial spas is we can't put enough emphasis on stove selection and how the stove is going to be maintained. So when we're thinking about it, when you're running a spa, you do not want to you don't want downtime from your stove going out. And it can be a little alarming hearing feedback of when there's a lot of water on the stove, how quick the elements are burning out. And
I hear there's a manufacturer right not too far away that has a design with protected elements. Do you have anything to say about that, Andrew?
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to talking with Kyle there, because we don't use Homecraft now, but I think when you're building a spa and operating it, having the consideration of, okay, what's the expected longevity for these elements? If something's going to go wrong with the stove, what is it, and how can we be prepared for that when it happens? So we can, like, having spare elements, I think, is probably a must for commercial spas when you're ordering the stove, and having before it's operational, knowing how the elements get replaced, who's doing it, and having that plan in place, because we've learned that we haven't done that. Yeah. And then we get a frantic phone call. Yeah. One of our stoves is down. The sauna's at 50 degrees. We're booked solid for the next 2 weeks.
And then what happens is the maintenance department starts running the ship, and they get the sign up over the heater that says water shall not be thrown on the rocks. Yeah. Otherwise, you'll be escorted to the property line.
Or even worse, the sauna is not, like, you have to shut it down because it's not at temperature, and then it's almost like you can't have that happen with your business.
Especially a functioning business that has a lease, and like you said, is booked solid.
Yeah.
I think, and that's kind of why our business works primarily with Homecraft in commercial settings, because I know if I get a phone call, I make a phone call and I have elements the next day or the same day, and I'm not as confident with some of the other brands.
After you build a sauna for a commercial client, is your job over, or is there a service contract specific to the heater that you guys uphold to?
There's no service contract. The job is technically over, but the relationship is not. So it's, staying in contact and just making sure that they know they can come to us with maintenance needs and some planning. So what I'll do is with some of these projects, I'll encourage people to order an extra set of elements, have them in your storage room, have them available, because it's inevitable, and or close, have a planned closure where you just change out your elements instead of it being a forced situation.
like preventative maintenance.
Yes, exactly.
Plan.
Yeah.
Cool. Questions from the floor? Go ahead.
As far as wood stove maintenance,
What's your name and what are you up to? Besides being in a robe. Hey, this is audio only, but if the video is here, you look like the kind of guy I want to party with. What's your name and what are you wearing?
my name's Kurt. I'm wearing a tie-dye bathrobe here with Sisu Sauna on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington. And my question is, for wood stove maintenance, do you feel it's necessary to clean the ash out, or do you feel like it burns hot enough where it self-cleans?
Wow, I almost want to tackle that one. I mean, I've been burning wood for 35 years, I guess is the amount, but I always clean the ash box, like start fresh, always. It better ignition, and it'll create better draw. Any comment to that?
I guess I was saying more the soot and the pipe.
Oh, well, that's a yearly maintenance plan, definitely. But I will say that there's a little bit of rabbit hole here, and I'm trying not to plug a certain sauna stove manufacturer I'm a huge fan of. But when you're burning hot and uncontrolled, what you have is a lot of creosote potential buildup, because as we know, most of the fuel in wood combustion is through the gases. And when you're burning hot and fast, creosote wants to stick on something that's cold, and that's relatively cold. So as the stovepipe gets cooler as you go up, that becomes a collection point for creosote. So very dangerous stuff, creosote, as we know. But if you're burning a stove that burns hot and fast and gasifies, the creosote buildup is less. But certainly a maintenance plan on that. Cool?
Yeah.
You like that one?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. You good? Good? Okay, next question. Who are you? Where are you from? And what do you got?
My name is Brad from Kelowna. I'm an aspiring sauna builder, just getting started. And I'm interested to hear if these guys have ever come across any scenarios where they would be partnering, like joint venturing with other businesses or other industries, like, for example, providing a sauna for free in exchange for ongoing revenues from the experience.
Yeah, I think that's something that we definitely get approached, especially these days. I feel like quite a bit about partnerships, and it's always something that I'm very hesitant on. I think especially over time, we figured out like what marketing works and what our marketing budget is and what we want to target. So we'll frequently get social media influencers and celebrities that want a sauna for free. And like we just had one from New York. I'm very wealthy. I have a very wealthy friend group. We'd love to have your sauna and promote it. And from our perspective, we go, okay, so you want a $50,000 sauna for free. Who are your friends? What are their
How important are your friends?
Yeah, that could be like 2 years of Google keywords we know that works. So we normally don't entertain that stuff because we're pretty thoughtful about where we want to spend our marketing. And I feel like the partnership stuff is like we have a charity program that we work with and we donate to that. And so with these influencers and celebrities, we'll tell them that, look, we don't build saunas in exchange for marketing, but there might be an opportunity there that is something to look at. But
Josh.
Yeah, we get a lot of very similar requests, and it's gets a little tiresome to tell people that we don't just give saunas away for free for an X amount of free posts on their big social media page. At the end of the day, if I give someone a $50,000 sauna, if I take 50 grand and put it into targeted marketing versus like a watered down audience, it just doesn't even compare. It makes zero sense. But then, sometimes you do partner with people that value your time and your business, and there's a lot of organic growth and referrals. And if you start, how do I put this? We've had a couple clients that we've partnered with that have just been a standard client that we've had continued relationships with, and we've been able to give them things because of the exposures they've brought to us. So it's almost like they become a client, and there's the relationship that continues, and then we're able to give back in that way.
Yeah, builders are builders, operators are operators.
yeah,
Was that a good rule of thumb?
yeah, I think so.
Josh, good rule of thumb?
Yeah.
You want to say more?
Well, I was just thinking about one. We got offered last year to be on a HGTV show. It was a cabin rental show, and initially I was like, oh, we're gonna do this. This is gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
And then we dug into it, and they wanted a $60,000 sauna, and then we might get shown in the episode, and then we'll have a link on some web page that's not even on their main, and their social media, not even like the main social media account, but one of their, and we ended up going like, this is, initially I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. And then we looked into it and went, if we do this, we're gonna throw 50 grand.
Yeah, it's a shiny lure in the water, but you're a smart fish.
Well,
you went back to your depths of the core. Who do we have here?
It's Ilka Wito from Cedar Cottage in East Vancouver. Question is about hybrid sauna systems. Like, have you guys, just because of all the forest fires we've recently had and burning wood in the summer is kind of frowned upon, do you guys ever build hybrid systems with electric and wood?
Electric and wood. Sorry. Have you done one?
No, but we are going to be working together on one this year for a commercial spa where they want electric heat and then have wood as an accent piece where they can perform ceremonies with. So there's a stove manufacturer, EOS, that builds it's hard to do because you have a limited space, and to put an electric and wood stove is like, it's so space consuming. But this electric stove goes under the bench, so it's hidden. Mm-hmm. So you basically have the electric heating the room with the visual of the wood burner, and that's going to be the first one.
Real or fake?
Yeah.
Hey, this is a culture of and, not or, right? So, yeah.
It's an illusion.
This is great. We got 3 minutes left, and I like this. This is cool. I knew this event was going to be awesome. This is my jam. I mean, I feel as if we're sitting by a campfire. We're in the conference room. We see saunas, 7 saunas right over our shoulders. It's a sunny day. We're going to have lunch next, Val?
Yeah.
Right on. So lunch, before we go to lunch, another question, comment even, just any. Hi, what's your name?
I'm Jules.
Jules?
Yeah.
Cool. Where are you from, Jules?
I'm from Vancouver, and I run Calm Contrast, which is currently Vancouver's largest sauna with seating for 50 people. And I'm curious what the thoughts are on drainage in the sauna.
Drainage in the sauna. Either of you guys? Yeah, drainage?
That's a great question. It depends a lot on, where your heaters are located and how you're intending to use them. If there's a lot of water being poured over the rocks, I think it's a good idea. It's a good consideration. If you have an experience where you have a lot of wet bathers coming in, that's a whole other experience. We currently have a sauna in a gym that has cold plungers right beside the sauna as well, and they have one drain for the whole room, and the staff is in there every 15 minutes with the squeegee.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a vibe killer. And something like that, it was just overlooked, and now they have to deal with that.
Overlooked, that's a good point. Andrew, any comments of drainage? I have one, so.
Yeah, I would say if you're going to put a drain in, then you need to slope the whole floor. I think a lot of times we see, okay, we'll put a drain in, but it's a totally flat floor with a drain that sticks up. And so we say if you're going to do it, you need to slope the entire floor and actually have it. But it's not something, depending on the size of the room, I would say we could go either way on it.
I get this a lot, this drainage in sauna, specifically with residential, and a lot of people want to lay up short and say no to in an indoor environment. I mean, outdoor it's a no-brainer to do drainage, but I'm like, this basement sauna thing, I'm like, my rule of thumb is you treat a sauna as if you would like a shower or a steam room. Like, just because it doesn't look wet, don't build it to be dry. Sauna bathing is what it is, and it's just a part of the thing. And to be able to hold that attribute back because you didn't do a drain on the front end is really giving the act of sauna a real disservice, especially when you have a buddy over who's going to kick over the Lolu bucket, which is an inevitability. It's not if, it's when. So we're done. This was great. We're going to be around, and we'll talk on the bench about sauna building. But thanks, Josh, Andrew, for being a part of this this side panel on sauna building.